This is going to be a short video. I don't have a lot of goals. I have a lot of broad goals, and I'm going to show you my TBR at the end, so let's go ahead and just get into it. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope this year is better to everyone than 2020 was. And I'm going to try to start it off good for me by establishing some rules to follow when it comes to reading this year. So one thing about me is I don't like TBRs. I do not like being told what to read unless it's for like a challenge and I feel like I'm winning something. I don't like establishing a set amount of books in certain categories to read for myself, because then I feel like I can't deviate and it just puts me in a reading slump. Like, I cannot explain it. So it's really hard to tell myself I'm going to read a certain amount of things per month, because then it just feels like rules. It doesn't feel like a challenge. But I'm going to try to do these next few things over the next year and see if that can help me out a little bit. The first thing isn't even really about reading, it's about book buying. I'm putting myself on a book buying ban for January, March, May, July, September, and November. So basically half the year, just don't buy books for that month. Like, don't go to thrift stores, don't hit up the Kindle like ebook deals, don't buy new releases. If you haven't pre-ordered them, you can just wait. Because I am spending way too much on books, and I'm spending money on books with nowhere to put them afterward. And so I need to just stop the influx of books into my house and just read them and decide if I like them and keep them. If not, get them out of the house. The only month that may change is May, and that's because I'm graduating in May, and I may decide to treat myself to like a book shopping trip, but I don't know. But we'll see. If I do decide to buy books in May, I'll just skip June. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is kind of a flexible challenge, but the overall goal is to stop spending so much money on books. Another way to get books out of my house and read is to read a backlog book. So I have 2 shelves and a whole piano filled with books that I have not read. And it's starting to get really embarrassing how many of those I have not read, especially given how many of them are like newer releases and like classic books I should have read as an English major. So what I'm going to do is read 1 backlog book a month. And that can be in physical format or ebook. I do have quite a few Kindle books that I have bought over the last like year or so that I just have not picked up. And that's kind of embarrassing. So as long as I read 1 of my backlogs a month, I'll be doing good. Now, with these challenges I've given myself, there are quite a few that I could read more than 1 backlog a month, but we'll get into that. The next challenge is 1 own voices / diverse read a month, and I'm basically doing that as any book written from experience that's not my own. And I'll point out in my TBR which one of those fits each category, but I just need to work on increasing my knowledge of these texts. I follow the Disrupt Text tag, because as a teacher, I want to make sure that I'm finding material that speaks to my students and not just to my tastes. And finding more diverse reads is going to be the way to do that. The last one that's kind of broad is I want to read 1 classic or traditional like high school canon book a month. We didn't read a lot when I was in school. There are a lot of books that people talk about they were forced to read in high school that we didn't read. And so I've never read them, but I may end up having to teach them, if that makes sense, or at least mentioning them in class. I don't want to be caught off guard when people ask me what Catcher in the Rye is about. I need to read Catcher in the Rye. So I want to just go ahead and do this. That'll help me with my backlog a lot, because a lot of my backlog is classics. The last 2 are more like flexible. This may be something that I accomplish, it may be not. It is to read 1 Margaret Atwood book a month and 1 Stephen King book a month, because they are the 2 authors that I have the most on my backlog for. I have an entire shelf. That whole shelf right there is Stephen King that I have not read. That's embarrassing when I call him my favorite author, and that's how little I've read of him. So I'm going to go through that and hopefully, read a decent amount of his stuff, and Margaret Atwood, who's up on this shelf beside me, because I like their books, and they make me feel good when I read them, but I never think to pick them up because I'm trying to play catch up for school or for some kind of like booktube thing. So I really need to go ahead and work through their bibliography, I guess is what it is. So last but not least, let's look at my TBR. There is 1 book on here I will not tell you because it is part of the Buzzwordathon, and I want that to be a surprise. And the other 2 are Michael F. Smith's Nick and Alexandra Bracken's Lore. I think Lore is coming in the Fairy Loot box for January, which I signed up for. And Nick is written about Nick Carraway from Great Gatsby before the Great Gatsby. Because I don't know if you know this, but the Great Gatsby enters public domain on today. So, like, you can do what you want to with it. So the other books I'm reading for this TBR that cover different challenges are The Great Gatsby. I have to read this. I put it off. It was in one of my reading videos where I said I needed to read it before January. No, I need to read this last minute because I'm teaching it in February. So I need to go ahead and read it, do my annotations for it. You know, oh wow, nails match. It's almost like I planned that. So I'm going to read this. Is going to be my classic that I need to read. A Heart So Fierce and Broken. I know that the third book is coming out this month in January, and so I want to catch up with this series. I doubt I will read A Vow So, was it Bold and Deadly? I doubt I'll read that anytime soon, but I want to go ahead and get caught up with the series before I like accidentally see spoilers or something. For my own voices diverse read, and also actually technically High School Canon classic read, I'm going to read A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. I love Ernest J. Gaines' writing. I think he is very funny but poignant, and his books are usually really quick because of the way he writes the books. They read really fast. So this shouldn't be a problem to squeeze in before I start doing my student teaching. The Margaret Atwood book I'm reading is Alias Grace. It's kind of a big one compared to some of the other books I have from her on my shelf, but I had to make a trade-off. I knew Stephen King had a lot of big books too, so I'm just going to alternate between those two. The Stephen King book I am reading is The Colorado Kid because it is probably the smallest Stephen King book I have on my shelf, and with A Heart So Fierce and Broken and Alias Grace, I need to be able to get through these books. I don't see it as a problem. I don't think it's going to be an issue, but this at least gives me somewhere to start, and it gives me a guideline of what to do. And it's going to be interesting at the end of the year to see how well I adhered to this list of challenges that I gave myself. I'm looking forward to see if this broadens my horizon on books that I'm reading, and also helps me get through my physical TBR, because that's really something I want to do in this year, is to get through these physical books that I have in my room that I haven't read, because that just seems not smart. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you have a great day and a great rest of your year. I'm still putting out videos until the 6th, and then after that, who knows? By the way, I don't mean after that, who knows, as in like you should be worried about what's going to happen to me. It just means that I'm going to be doing student teaching starting at the end of January until May. And since we don't know if we're going to be in school as a hybrid model or completely remote, like they keep debating on this, I'm just going to be in such a state of mental panic trying to plan to teach The Great Gatsby either remote or hybrid that I will probably not have time to film and edit videos. So if you see me before May of 2021, wow, I don't know how I managed that.